Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are doing something a little different.
It's a little unusual for us.
Usually, you know the drill. We take a stack of articles, maybe a new nonfiction bestseller, or, a dense research paper, and we distill it.
We process information,
Exactly. But today we're processing a person.
literally. We're basically reading a human being.
Literally. We are conducting what I can only describe as a forensic analysis of a specific individual, someone known in various circles as Kay or Carlos, sometimes me.
If you go back far enough in the internet archives, the Chexing Wixar.
Gixing Wixer, which is a handle that, it really deserves its own deep dive on.
Oh, absolutely. We could do an hour just on that.
We'll get there. But here's why this is so fascinating for us. The source stack we have is, well, eclectic feels like a huge understatement.
It's a wild mix.
We have a philosophical manuscript written by the subject himself. It's called Ash V6. Super dense, very metaphorical. Then we have memoirs drafts, really titled Second Chances in Darkness That Has Never Left.
And then there's my personal favorite, the Kay and Ray stories.
Which are these bizarre, hilarious, semi-fictionalized accounts of his recovery.
Yeah, they're something else.
Yeah.
But crucially, we also have the primary source documents.
Right. This is the core of it. A folder of high-resolution images. File names IMG 2549 all the way through IMG 2573. We're looking at his skin.
We're looking at his tattoos.
So we're calling this Ink as Archive, decoding the tattoos of Kay.
It's such a compelling premise. We often treat tattoos as, just decoration, right? Accessories.
I like this picture, so I put it on my arm.
Exactly. But when you have the sheer volume of written material that we have for Kay, and you cross-reference it with the visual evidence on his body, you realize we're not just looking at art, we're looking at a map.
A flesh archive. That's what you called it in our pre-show notes.
It is. It's a geological record. You can actually see the different strata of his life, the addiction, the high-functioning chaos, the trauma, and then this very fragile but very profound redemption.
Etched right into him.
It's all there. You just have to know how to read the language.
And the language is so contradictory. That's what threw me when I first looked at the photos. So on one arm, you have these incredibly profound, geometric, almost spiritual symbols. An owl made of triangles, a moth, sacred geometry. It looks like something a monk would design.
Right. Very considered, very deliberate.
And then you pan over to the other arm, and it's an AK-47 jagged barbed wire and Homer Simpson.
The duality of man captured in ink.
It is jarring. So our mission today is to decode what we're calling the emotional architecture of Kay's life.
I like that phrase.
We want to understand how a scorpion, a geometric owl, and a cartoon character can all coexist on the same canvas. We're going to be art historians, psychologists, and literary critics all at once.
And just to set the stakes for you listening, this isn't just about cool tattoos. This is a case study in how we mark time.
Right.
It's about how we scar over our trauma, and maybe more importantly, how we rewrite our own stories when the ink is permanent, but the meaning can change.
So let's start with the blueprint. You mentioned this manuscript, Ash V6. I have to admit, when I first opened this file, I was pretty skeptical.
I can see why.
It reads like this strange mix of a fantasy novel and a philosophy textbook. It follows two characters, Ash and Lyra, walking through a hall of symbols.
Okay, I get the skepticism, but here's the key. Ash V6 is the Rosetta Stone for this whole project.
The Rosetta Stone, how so?
Without this text, the tattoos are just pictures. They're cool, but they're contextless. The text reveals that this hall of symbols isn't some fictional place. It's a description of Kay's own body.
Wow.
He's literally writing the internal monologue for the external image.
Okay, so let's test that theory. Let's jump right in with the first major piece. I'm looking at image IMG 20553 and also 2B566. It's a large, really striking owl on his forearm, but it's not a realistic owl at all. It's entirely geometric. It's made of shards and triangles and interlocking lines.
The Sentinel of Night?
That's the name for it in the text.
That's the one. In Ash V6, the protagonist, Ash, comes across a Sentinel of Night, fashioned entirely from interlocking angles and planes. The text really emphasizes that it's constructed.
Constructed?
It's not organic, it's architectural.
Okay, why is that distinction important? Constructed versus organic.
Well, think about the background here. We know from the memoir, Second Chances, that Kay had a long, brutal struggle with addiction.
Right. Heavy drug use, a chaotic lifestyle, emotional volatility.
Exactly. Addiction is the ultimate organic chaos. It's messy, it's sprawling, it has no straight lines.
Pure entropy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So When K decides to mark his body with wisdom, which is what an owl traditionally represents, he doesn't choose a soft, fluffy, natural owl. He chooses a geometric one. The text actually says true wisdom is geometric, constructed from patience and observation.
Ah, so he's trying to impose order on his own chaos.
Yes, the geometry isn't just an aesthetic choice because, geometric tattoos look cool. It's a psychological countermeasure.
It's like a cage for the chaos.
Perfectly put. It is a cage for the chaos. If you look closely at the image, the text describes the eyes as deep pools of contemplation, but the structure around them is rigid. This connects to this idea of vigilance.
Vigilance.
In those Kay and Ray stories, the humorous ones, he talks a lot about sleepwalking.
Yeah, he mentions literally sleepwalking, but also, metaphorically sleepwalking through huge chunks of his life, just being high, being checked out.
The owl is the anti-sleepwalker. It's the part of him that has to stay awake. It's the sentinel. When the rest of his brain wants to drift off into that fog of addiction, the sentinel has to remain geometric. It has to stay sharp.
It's the designated driver of his psyche.
That is a perfect way to put it. It's the part of him that's saying, I see the darkness, I know it's there, but I will not dissolve into it. I will maintain my shape.
Speaking of dissolving, let's move just a little bit down the arm. There's another geometric piece here, but this one feels, I don't know, heavier. It's a moth. IMG 2558 and 2565 show it really clearly. It looks like a death's head moth. It has that skull pattern on its back.
The emissary of the abyss.
That sounds incredibly ominous. The abyss.
It does, but let's look at how Ash V6 talks about it. It describes a tangled nest of thorn and wing and a symmetrical mask, representing mortality embraced without fear.
Okay, mortality embraced without fear. I have to pause on that. That's a very, very high bar. Most people are terrified of mortality. Is he posturing here, or is this genuine?
I think the context is everything. Look at the Second Chance's memoir. We have the car crash in 2017 where he literally went through a windshield. We have the manuscript titled Darkness That Has Never Left, which heavily implies a chronic struggle with depression or even suicidal ideation.
Right, and his father's near-death experiences.
So Kay has brushed up against the abyss again and again.
So the moth isn't a death wish, it's something else.
No, it's not a death wish. It's an acknowledgement of what he calls the flux.
You used that phrase earlier, the philosophy of the flux. What does he mean by that?
In the manuscript, the flux is a state of constant, almost terrifying change. It's the idea that nothing, absolutely nothing, holds its shape forever. A moth is the perfect avatar for this.
How so?
Think about the biology of a moth. It goes into a cocoon, and it doesn't just sprout wings, it completely liquefies.
Right, it turns into goo.
It dissolves into this generic protein soup before it reforms into something new.
That's a horrifying image, but I think I see where you're going with this.
For a recovering addict, that is the reality of getting clean. You have to be willing to dissolve your old self, the Carlos persona, the user, the liar, to become something new.
So the moth represents that transformation.
It represents that, and it says endings are not to be dreaded. The dissolution, the goo phase, is necessary for the flight.
It's accepting the shadow self. The text mentions that every light casts a shadow. You can't have the recovery without acknowledging the history.
Exactly. The moth carries the skull on its back. It carries the death with it. It's not running from the death. It's wearing it. It's the emissary that tells him, you survived the abyss. Now make it part of your design.
Wow. Okay, so we have the owl, which is vigilance, and the moth, which is transformation and death. And then right next to them, we have an alien.
The figure of peace.
I have to be honest with you, looking at IMG 25566, it looks like a sticker.
It does.
It's a classic gray alien, big black almond eyes, and he's holding up two fingers and a peace sign. It looks like something I would have bought at a skate shop in 1998.
Totally.
How does this fit into the philosophical manuscript? It feels like a total non sequitur.
It looks like pop culture, yes. But you should never underestimate the depth of the inner outlier.
The inner outlier.
That's a chapter title from Second Chances. But look at how Ash V6 describes this specific image. It doesn't call it a cartoon. It calls it a figure, with eyes as vast as galaxies, fingers raised in a gesture of peace.
Okay.
It says that it represents the unknown observer.
So he's mythologizing it. But why an alien? What's the connection?
Think about the narrative of his life. Throughout Second Chances, we see Kay or Carlos, as he was then, feeling like he just doesn't fit in his own family. He calls himself the second-born, but outside any sequence,
He's the black sheep, the rebel.
he's the one doing drugs while his brother Ahmad is the golden boy. He feels like a separate species.
He feels alien.
Precisely. Alienated from his family, from society, and so often from himself. So what do you do with that feeling? You can let it consume you, or you can own it.
So the tattoo is a way of him saying, yes, I am the alien.
It's a way of greeting the stranger within himself. The text says it's about greeting the unknown with humility. It's K making peace with his own weirdness. He's saying, okay, I'm the alien, I'm the observer from a different planet, I don't fit in, and I come in peace.
That's actually really touching. It completely recontextualizes what looks like a silly little image into this badge of identity.
It turns I don't belong into I am a peaceful visitor.
That's powerful.
And that really is the core of his Ash persona. This ability to take the strange, the mundane, and make it sacred. He takes a pop culture sticker and turns it into a totem of self-acceptance.
Okay, let's pivot from the philosophy to the history, the timeline. Because while Ash V6 gives us the meaning, Second Chances gives us the dates. And there's one tattoo that functions as a literal timestamp, the infinity symbol.
Right. IMG 2551 and 2552. A small, simple infinity loop right on the wrist.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. An infinity tattoo on the wrist.
I know.
That is a pumpkin spice latte of tattoos. It's a massive cliche.
Yeah.
Every teenager in 2014 had one to symbolize BFFs or love forever.
It is a fair critique.
Is Kay really doing something deep here, or are we just overanalyzing a trend he jumped on?
If we only had the photo, I would 100% agree with you. It looks basic, but we have the text. And the text explicitly fights against that interpretation. It says, and I'm quoting, "It is not a romantic promise of forever."
So he's aware it's a cliche, and he's reclaiming it.
He's completely redefining it for himself. The date attached to this tattoo is so important. It's February 21st, 2019.
What happened on that day?
3 days before that, his father, Morgan, awoke from a very serious surgery. The source material paints Morgan as this foundational, stoic figure, an oak tree of a man.
Right.
His illness just rocked Kay's world. It destabilized the entire family structure.
And there's a partner mentioned in this story, too, a woman named Lena.
Right. Carlos, who is Kay, and Lena go to his studio hidden between two cafes. The artist is named Tanya. They get matching infinity symbols. But listen to how he describes the meaning in Second Chances. It's not about looking forward to forever. It's about the loop itself.
He calls it a record of having started again.
Exactly. Think about the nature of severe trauma or addiction. It breaks your timeline. You feel like your life has stopped, like you've hit a dead end. The infinity symbol for K is a closed loop. It's recursive. It means I am still here. The line didn't break. It looped back on itself.
It's proof of continuity.
It's a save point, to use a video game metaphor. It marks the transition from the darkness that has never left to what he calls the shape of return. It proves survival. It's the anti-period. It's a comma that just loops back on itself.
Wow, okay. That gives it a lot more weight than best friends forever. It's more like survival forever.
Or survival continuous.
And speaking of continuity and rising again, we have to talk about the rising sun. This one is on his forearm.
This comes from the DTHNL manuscript Darkness That Has Never Left. And this tattoo corresponds to his physical healing phase.
This is when he's finally eating regular meals, right?
Yeah.
The source notes that the gaunt, skeletal look was finally leaving his face.
Yes. He's exercising, he's getting clean, and he gets this tattoo of a sun rising over gentle waves. It's the perfect counterpart to the owl.
How so?
The owl is the sentinel of night. It's watching over the darkness. The sun is the promise of day.
I promised to myself to keep rising no matter how many nights fell. That's a direct quote.
It sounds simple, almost trite, but for someone in recovery, that circadian rhythm is a miracle. When you're deep in addiction, time just dissolves. It's always night. It's always 3 a.m. in the soul. You sleep all day, you're up all night. The sun tattoo is a commitment to the morning. It's a commitment to being a person who sees the sun come up.
There's a darker layer to this timeline, though, that we can't ignore. The canvas itself, the source material mentions that Carlos used to burn himself.
With cigarettes. He calls it the winter ink.
That's a chilling phrase, the winter ink.
It is. The text says he did it to feel pain or to ground himself when the drugs weren't enough, or maybe as a punishment.
So how do the tattoos interact with that?
This is where the whole ink as archive idea gets very, very literal. The tattoos, like the dead rose or the barbed wire, which we'll get to, they often interact with or directly cover these scar sites. It's a reclamation of his own skin.
He turned a site of self-harm into a site of art.
But he didn't erase them, and that is so crucial. The epigraph from Second Chances says, "To heal is not to erase the past, it is to live beside it without flinching."
To live beside it.
The ink lives beside the scar. The geometry of the owl sits on top of the chaos of the burn. He's not hiding his history. He's editing the manuscript. He's adding a new chapter that completely reframes the old one.
Okay, so we've done the spiritual, we've done the trauma, we have to go to the war zone now. We have to talk about the genius years.
This is such a fascinating pivot in his biography.
Hmm.
Before he was the philosopher Ash, or the recovering K, he was Kexwexard.
I love that handle, Kexwexard, spelled with X's, of course.
Naturally. This comes from his profile on genius.com. For listeners who might not know, Genius, it was formerly Rap Genius, is that massive site where people annotate lyrics.
Right.
But back in, say, 2014, 2015, it wasn't just a wiki. It was a community. It was a real culture.
And Kay wasn't just a user, he was a moderator, a high-ranking community member.
He was deep in it. He was analyzing Lil Wayne, Tyga, Meek Mill. He was decoding slang, explaining all these metaphors about 40 cal pistols and drug dealing and street violence.
So he was a scholar of the streets, even if he was analyzing it from behind a computer screen.
Exactly. And this explains the entire aesthetic of his right arm. Because if you look at IMG 2561 and 2563, it looks like he's lived a completely different life.
It really does. There is a stark black AK-47 assault rifle. There's jagged barbed wire wrapped around his arm.
If you saw this guy walking down the street with just that arm visible, you would make a very specific assumption about him.
Oh, for sure. You'd think he was a soldier or a gang member or someone who glorifies violence. It's aggressive, it's loud.
But it's an homage. It's an homage to the lyrical world he was living in mentally. The AK-47 is a totem of the war zone.
The source mentions the war zone of Etched City, the market square, the drugs, the rebellion.
Right. He felt like he was in a war. The addiction was a war. The family trauma was a war. The environment of his city was a war. And the music he was consuming, this specific era of hip-hop, validated that feeling. Hip-hop is full of that imagery. Survival, the hustle, the weapon as a tool of defense.
So the AK-47 isn't about him wanting to shoot people. It's about being a soldier in his own life.
Exactly. It represents the Kexwexard persona. The part of him that is tough, the part of him that fights back.
In the barbed wire. That's such a classic prison imagery.
It is. But notice where it is. It's wrapped around the arm. In tattoo symbolism, barbed wire often represents a struggle that's been overcome. A prison sentence survived, whether that prison was a literal cell or the prison of his addiction.
It's a boundary.
It's a boundary. It says, I have been through the wire.
It is just so jarring, though, to see the AK-47 right next to the geometric owl we were just talking about.
But that's the point. That is why this deep dive is so interesting. A human being is not one genre. K is a compilation album.
I like that.
He has the track about the spiritual owl. That's the ambient instrumental track.
Hmm.
And he has the track about the AK-47. That's the hardcore trap track. They are both true.
He's large, he contains multitudes.
And ammunition.
And donuts. Because we have to talk about the third genre on this compilation. We've had the spiritual, we've had the gangster, and now we have the cartoon.
The chaos agent.
We have to talk about Homer Simpson. IMG 2549, it's literally just Homer's head. And then we also have Donkey from Shrek in IMG 2551.
This brings us to the K and Ray source material, which I frankly think is the key to understanding how he actually survived all this.
How so?
If he only had the owl and the AK-47, he'd just be a tragic figure. He'd be too heavy.
And K and Ray is hilarious. It paints K not as this brooding philosopher, but as a guy who is constantly like tripping over his own feet.
A guy who wakes up face down in a pot of basil.
Wait, you have to tell the basil story.
Okay, it's a short vignette. He decides he's going to grow basil to prove to himself that he can nurture something.
A classic recovery move.
Totally. But he gets drunk, passes out, and crushes the plant. He wakes up smelling like pesto and failure.
That is tragic comedy right there.
And then there's the foam throne. He keeps bumping into furniture because he's clumsy or high or both. So he builds this fortress for himself out of packing foam and just sits in it.
He describes himself in one story as a raccoon on a juice cleanse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why Homer Simpson? Homer is the ultimate eyed. He is impulsive. He makes terrible decisions. He loves his vices, but he's also incredibly resilient. He always bounces back. He is the everyman victim of his own impulses.
The text calls it the punchline.
Yes. In K and Ray, K has this realization that survival is messy. And, sometimes it's just hilarious. He says, I woke up. That's the punchline. The Homer tattoo is a refusal to take the tragedy too seriously.
It's a pressure valve.
It is. If you take yourself too seriously, if you are always the sentinel of night, you crack. You need the dough. You need to look at your arm and see Homer Simpson staring back at you, reminding you that you're a bit of an idiot and that's okay.
And Donkey from Shrek, what's that about?
Donkey is the annoying, talkative, but deeply loyal sidekick. Maybe that's the part of his brain that just will not shut up, his anxiety. But instead of fighting the anxiety, he tattoos it as Donkey. He makes it a character. Oh, that's just Donkey talking again.
That connects to the broken wine glass tattoo as well, right?
Yeah.
IMG 2553.
The wine glass is interesting. It's spilled. It's broken. Red liquid is pooling out of it.
It's a very direct reference to that Basil epiphany and his journey with sobriety. The source, Ash V6, talks about a vessel that glimmered with memories of indulgence.
A broken wine glass is a universal symbol, right? The party is over. The vessel is shattered. We don't drink from that cup anymore.
But it's also stylized. It's not just a warning sign, it's presented as art.
It's a memory of choices made and unmade. And notice the placement. It sits right there near the owl. Wisdom is watching the broken glass. The sentinel watches the mistake. It's a whole narrative cluster.
Okay, let's get a little darker again. We need to talk about his hand, the 666 tattoo, IMG 2568.
This is a bold placement. The hand is the first thing people see when you greet them. It's what they call a job stopper in the tattoo industry.
And 666, I mean, that comes with some heavy cultural baggage. That's the mark of the beast.
It is. In the context of the inner outlier and the darkness that is never left, this is pure rebellion. This is likely the old tattoo that's mentioned in the memoirs that symbolized pain and defiance.
So this is from the era where he wanted to shock people.
Or where he wanted to show the world that he was bad. Yeah. Or that he belonged to the darkness. It's like, you think I'm a mess? Fine, I'm the devil. It's a defense mechanism.
But here's the thing that gets me. He's in recovery now. He's writing philosophy. He's planning Basil. Why keep the 666? Why not laser it off or cover it up with a flower or something?
Because it's a marker of a chapter he lived through. If he erases it, he's hiding the fact that he was once that angry, defiant kid. By keeping it, he's doing exactly what that epigraph says, like living beside it.
He shakes hands with people using that hand.
Exactly. He writes his philosophy with that hand. He nurtures his plants with that hand. It's been integrated. It's no longer a symbol of evil. It's a symbol of what he overcame. It's a trophy.
It's also right next to the skull and crown, IMG 2561, the symmetrical mask.
The skull is obviously mortality. But the crown is the key detail. It's a stylized, almost Gothic crown. It elevates the skull. It's not just death is coming. It's more like death is king.
Or maybe I am the king of my own mortality.
That fits the Dean Saxon persona perfectly. He ruled over his own destruction for a long time. Now he rules over his survival. It's a reclamation of agency. It's saying, I own this death.
We've talked about a lot of the pieces individually, but we need to talk about the synthesis. There's one piece that seems to combine all these elements, the nature, the danger, the struggle, into one complex narrative. The tree and the scorpion.
Sleep piece, yeah. IMG 2550, 2551, 2552. It's incredibly complex. You have a scorpion, you have a tree branch, and you have a skull all woven together.
Okay, so let's break it down. The scorpion.
Defensive, dangerous, solitary. The scorpion stings. It's the Carlos persona-defiant testing limits, the inner outlier, the dangerous part of it.
And the tree.
The tree connects to the oblong visage in Ash V6. It talks about ancient memories, fresh leaves, roots. Trees represent stability, growth, patience. Basically the opposite of the scorpion.
But here's the kicker. We have this story from Kay and Ray called The Midnight Forest Patrol. And I think this story explains this tattoo better than any philosophy book ever could.
Please recount it. It is essential context.
Okay, so Kay's on a camping trip with his Sleepwalkers Anonymous group, which is already hilarious.
Right.
His CPAP machine battery dies. He starts sleepwalking in the middle of the woods. He finds this huge oak tree, and in his dream state, he is convinced the tree is a client who needs a suit fitting.
He tries to tailor the tree.
He is literally standing there in his pajamas, pawing at the bark, telling the tree, the shoulders are tight, we need to let the seams out, hold still, sir.
It's absurd, but it's also so profound. Think about what he's actually doing. He is a man who is trying to fix nature. He is trying to impose order tailoring, seams, measurements on something that is wild and organic and
He's a test. He's trying to tailor the chaos.
That is the story of his life. He tries so hard. He builds foam thrones. He bubble wraps his mother-in-law's luggage. He is constantly trying to tailor his environment to make it safe, to make it fit, to make it predictable.
And the tattoo captures that struggle perfectly. The scorpion, which is the wild, dangerous part, is crawling on the tree, the natural, stable part. It represents the struggle to control his own nature.
The insight here is that you can't tailor a tree. And you can't tailor a scorpion. You have to let them be. The tattoo acknowledges that the scorpion is always there on the branch. You can't tailor the scorpion away. You just have to let it be part of the ecosystem.
And then tucked right into that sleeve is the dead rose, IMG 2556.
The bloom before the break.
It's drooping. It's not a fresh romantic rose. It's clearly dying or already dead.
It represents loss. The Kay and Ray stories talk about that basil plant that died in the frost. He talks about choices unmade. Not everything survives the winter of addiction. Relationships died. Versions of himself died.
So the dead rose is an elegy?
It is. It's an acknowledgement that you can't save everything. You can save the tree, you can make friends with the scorpion, but the rose. And sometimes the rose just dies. And you keep the picture of it to remember that it was beautiful once.
Man, when you put it all together, it's not just a collection of random images. It's a library.
It really is. Let's review the ledger, as it were. Let's look at the body as a whole, organized.
Okay. On his left arm and wrist, we have the philosophical and the spiritual, the infinity loop of survival, the geometric owl of vigilance, the alien of peace. This is the ash side, the enlightened observer.
Right. And on the right arm and hand, we have the street and the rebellion, the AK-47, the barbed wire, the 666. This is the Carlos side, the survivor of the war zone.
The soldier.
And then sprinkled throughout, we have the humor, Homer Simpson, donkey, that's the K side, the man who can laugh at the absurdity of having both an owl and an AK-47 on the same body. It's a dialogue. That's what's so brilliant about it when you see it all together. His body is a conversation between his past and his future. The Ash persona, the geometric wisdom, is constantly talking to the Carlos persona, the chaotic rebel.
And the mediator is K, the guy with the basil plant.
Exactly. The mediator is the one who's writing the books. The source material mentions this project called Scripted Survival. It says he channeled these experiences into that work.
So the tattoos were the first draft of that.
They were the rough draft. So before he wrote Second Chances, before he wrote Ash V6, he wrote it on his skin. He tested the symbols on his own flesh to see if they held true, if they hurt enough to feel real.
They are the scripted survival.
He literally made himself into a manuscript. And unlike a book, he can't close it. He has to carry it into every room he enters. He has to shake hands with the 666 hand. He has to hug his wife with the AK-37 arm. He has to hold his basil plant with the infinity wrist.
It creates a wholeness. He isn't fragmented anymore. He's a collage.
And a collage is a valid form of art, maybe the most honest form. It says, I am made of these disparate pieces, and they're all glued together by time.
So what does this mean for us? For you listening, we don't all have AK-47 tattoos. We don't all have manuscripts about geometric owls.
But we all have a flesh archive, even if it's invisible. We all have the scars, the winter ink, whether they are physical or emotional. We all have those dates that changed us, like his February 21st. We all have the war zones of our youth and the sentinel parts of us that have to stay awake to keep us safe.
The question is, do we acknowledge them?
Right. Kay's body is an act of radical acknowledgement. He put it all on the outside. Most of us, we keep it on the inside. But the lesson of Ash V6 and Second Chances seems to be that if you hide the darkness, it owns you. If you wear the darkness, if you turn the moth into a tattoo, if you turn the trauma into a story, you own it.
You live beside it without flinching.
Precisely. You look at the scar and you say, I am still here. You look at the chaotic Homer Simpson part of your brain and you say, you are part of the team too.
I love that. You are part of the team, even the alien, even the scorpion.
Especially the scorpion, because without the scorpion, the tree is just wood. With the scorpion, it's a story.
Well, that is a lot to process. I'm going to be looking at my own scars a little differently tonight, and maybe thinking about what cartoon character represents my inner chaos.
I'm definitely a SpongeBob, porous and absorbent.
I was going to say Wile E. Coyote. Always planning, always failing, always coming back for the next scene. But that's for another deep dive. We want to leave you with a final provocation. If your body was a manuscript like Ash V6, if you had to turn your trauma and your triumphs into symbols, what would be in your hall of symbols?
What is your sentinel? What is your emissary?
And are you brave enough to ink it?
That is the question.
Thank you for diving deep with us into the flesh archive of K. It's a story of a darkness that never left, but also of a sun that rises anyway.
Keep rising.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.